The ship was old. Captain Tay knew this because he could hear every bolt and panel shake as they entered the atmosphere of Nexus Prime. The vessel groaned like a tired animal, but it held together. It always did. Sergeant Una sat across from him. She was cleaning her knife for the third time that hour. She did this when she was nervous, though she would never admit it. Tay had served with her for 6 years. He knew her habits better than his own. "Stop cleaning that thing," Tay said. "You will wear it down to nothing." Una looked up. Her eyes were sharp, always watching. "It keeps my hands busy." "Your hands should rest. We have a long week ahead." The ship shook again. Through the small window, Tay could see the planet below. Nexus Prime was a massive world, 3 times the size of Earth. Its surface was covered in silver cities and purple forests. It was beautiful in a strange way. This was the home of the Galactic Combat Council. Every 10 cycles, they held the Unity Games. Warriors from across the galaxy came to compete. It was meant to build friendship between species. It was also meant to show strength. Earth had never been invited before. Humans were new to the galactic community. They had only made contact with alien life 20 years ago. In that time, they had proven themselves to be clever traders and good diplomats. But warriors? The galaxy was not sure about that. The invitation had come as a surprise. The council wanted to see what humans could do. Tay suspected they also wanted to laugh at them. He had seen how other species looked at humans. They saw small bodies and soft skin. They saw creatures that lived for less than 100 years. They did not see threats. Tay was fine with that. Let them think what they wanted. The ship landed with a heavy thud. The door opened and bright light flooded the cabin. Tay stood up and straightened his uniform. It was simple and black, with the Earth flag on the shoulder. Nothing fancy. Nothing impressive. Una stood beside him. She had put her knife away. Now her hands hung loose at her sides, ready for anything. They walked down the ramp together. The spaceport was enormous. Tay had seen big buildings before, but nothing like this. The ceiling was so high that clouds formed inside the structure. Ships of every shape and size filled the landing areas. Some were sleek and silver. Others were rough and covered in weapons. One ship seemed to be alive, its surface moving like breathing skin. But it was not the ships that caught Tay's attention. It was the beings. Creatures of all kinds walked through the spaceport. Some were tall, over 3 meters high, with 4 arms and skin like stone. Others were small and fast, moving in groups of 20 or more. There were beings made of light and beings that seemed to be made of shadow. Tay saw one creature that looked like a floating ball of water with eyes, and all of them were looking at the humans. Tay kept his face calm. Una did the same. They had trained for this. They knew they would be watched and judged from the moment they arrived. A figure approached them. It was tall and covered in blue scales. Its eyes were yellow and split down the middle like a snake's. It wore a long robe decorated with golden symbols. "Greetings, Terrans," the creature said. Its voice was deep and smooth. "I am Coordinator Voss. I will be your guide during your time on Nexus Prime." Tay gave a small bow. "Thank you, Coordinator. I am Captain Tay, and this is Sergeant Una. We are honored to be here." Voss studied them for a moment. His yellow eyes moved up and down, taking in every detail. Tay could feel the judgment in that gaze. He did not react. "The honor is ours," Voss said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "Please follow me. The other champions are gathering in the Great Hall." They walked through the spaceport. Everywhere they went, beings stopped to stare. Some whispered to each other. Tay caught fragments of conversation. "Those are the Terrans? So small. How do they fight? I heard they die from simple infections. Their bodies cannot even heal properly. This must be a joke. The council is testing us. Tay kept walking. Yuna's jaw was tight, but she said nothing. They had expected this. They had prepared for it. The Great Hall was exactly what its name suggested. It was a massive room with walls that stretched up forever. Holographic displays showed images of past Unity games. Tay saw warriors of incredible power defeating enemies twice their size. He saw beings that could shoot fire from their hands and others that could turn invisible dot in the center of the hall. A large group had gathered. These were the champions, the galaxy's strongest fighters. Tay counted 12 different species represented. Each team had 2 or 3 warriors. All of them looked dangerous. The largest group was the Korvax. They were massive beings, nearly 4 meters tall, with 4 arms and skin that looked like cracked rock. Their eyes burned with orange light. Tay had read about them. They came from a high-gravity world. Their bones were dense as metal. A single punch from a Korvax could break through starship armor. Next to them stood the Solari. They were elegant creatures with silver skin and long, thin bodies. They looked delicate, but Tay knew better. The Solari were psychic. They could move objects with their minds and read thoughts. In combat, they were deadly. They were the Viarn, insect-like beings with hard shells and multiple limbs. The Gore, massive beasts covered in thick fur. The Nethi, beings that seemed to be made of pure energy. And many others. All of them turned to look as Tay and Yuna entered. The silence was heavy. Then someone laughed. It was a Korvax. He stepped forward, his stone feet shaking the ground with each step. He was the largest of his kind, nearly 5 meters tall. Golden markings covered his arms and chest. "These are the Terrans?" he said. His voice was like grinding rocks. "The council brings children to the games?" More laughter came from around the room. Not everyone laughed, but enough did. Tay stood still. He let the laughter wash over him like water. Beside him, Yuna did the same. The Korvax stopped in front of them. He looked down at Tay with burning eyes. "I am Grok, champion of Korvax Prime. I have killed enemies that could destroy stars. I have fought in 100 battles and won them all." He leaned closer. "What have you done, little Terran?" Tay looked up at him. He did not flinch. He did not step back. "I have survived," he said simply. Grok stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed again, but this time it was different. There was something uncertain in it. "Survived," Grok repeated. "That is your great achievement? Survival?" "Yes," Tay said. "My species has been surviving for a very long time. We have survived ice ages that covered our world. We have survived wars that killed millions. We have survived diseases that wiped out half our population. And we are still here." The laughter in the room had stopped. Some of the champions were watching with new interest. A Solari stepped forward. She was tall and graceful, with eyes that glowed soft blue. "I am Vila, champion of Solara. I have heard stories about Terrans. They say you have no natural weapons. No claws, no venom, no psychic abilities. Your bodies are fragile. You die easily." "All of that is true," Yuna said. Her voice was calm and steady. "We have nothing special about us. We are just flesh and bone." "Then how do you fight?" Vila asked. There was genuine curiosity in her voice. "We find a way," Yuna answered. "We always find a way." Another champion approached. This one was a Nethi, a being made of swirling light. It had no face, but somehow Tay could feel it studying him. "I can sense your life force," the Nethi said. Its voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "It is so brief. You live for less than 100 cycles. How do you accomplish anything in such a short time?" "We do not have time to waste," Tay replied. "Every moment matters." Every day is precious. Perhaps that is why we fight so hard. The room was quiet now. The champions were listening, really listening. Coordinator Voss stepped forward. The opening ceremony will begin soon. Champions, please take your positions. The groups began to move, but Grok did not leave. He stood before Tay, looking down at him with those burning eyes. I do not understand you, Terran, he said. You are small and weak. You should be afraid. But I see no fear in your eyes. Fear is useful, Tay said. It keeps you sharp, but it should not control you. Grok made a sound that might have been a grunt of respect. We will see how useful your fear is in the arena. He turned and walked away, his heavy footsteps echoing through the hall. Yuna moved closer to Tay. That went well, she said quietly. They still think we are jokes. Tay replied, Good. Let them think that. The opening ceremony was grand. Lights filled the sky. Music played from floating spheres. Each champion team was introduced to a crowd of millions. When Tay and Yuna walked out, the response was mixed. Some clapped politely. Others simply stared. A few laughed, but Tay noticed something. In the stands, there were small groups of beings who watched with intense interest. These were not the fighters. These were the thinkers, the analysts, the ones who studied strategy and history. They were not laughing. After the ceremony, there was a feast. Food from 100 worlds filled long tables. Tay ate carefully, checking everything with his scanner first. Some foods were poisonous to humans. Others were simply too strange. Champions mingled and talked. Alliances were formed. Rivalries were renewed. Tay and Yuna stayed together, watching and learning. Vala de Solari approached them again. Tomorrow we begin training demonstrations. Each team will show their methods. It is tradition. We understand, Tay said. Vila tilted her head. I looked into your species. I found something inti. The morning came fast. Tay had not slept well. The gravity on Nexus Prime was different from Earth. His body felt heavier and his joints ached. But he was used to discomfort. He had trained in worse conditions. Yuna was already awake when he opened his eyes. She sat on the floor, stretching her legs and back. Her movements were slow and careful. She had learned long ago that a warrior's body was their most important tool. It needed to be maintained. How do you feel? Tay asked. Heavy, she replied. The gravity here is about 10% stronger than home. Good. It will be useful training. They ate a simple breakfast. Rice and vegetables from Earth supplies. The alien food from the feast had been interesting, but nothing could replace the taste of home. A knock came at the door. Coordinator Voss stood outside, his blue scales shining in the morning light. The training demonstrations will begin in 1 hour, he said. All champions are expected to attend. We will be there, Tay said. Voss looked at them for a moment. His yellow eyes held something that might have been curiosity. The other champions are eager to see what Terrans can do. There are many bets being placed. Bets? Yuna asked. Yes, most believe you will not survive the first round of competition. Some believe you will refuse to fight at all. Voss paused. I hope you prove them wrong. It would make things more interesting. He turned and walked away, his long robe flowing behind him. Yuna closed the door. They are already betting against us. Let them bet, Tay said. We are not here to gamble. We are here to show them who we are. The training arena was massive. It was an open space the size of several football fields, surrounded by floating platforms where observers could watch. The ground was made of a special material that could change its texture and hardness. One moment it was soft like sand. The next, it was hard like stone. All the champions had gathered. They stood in their groups, talking and laughing. Some were warming up, showing off their abilities. A Korvax lifted a boulder the size of a car and threw it across the arena. A Solari floated in the air, surrounded by a glowing shield. The Nephi split into multiple copies of itself, each one moving independently. Tay and Una stood at the edge, watching. Grand Champion Vorik arrived last. He was the leader of the Combat Council, the most respected warrior in the galaxy. He was a Korvax like Grok, but older and covered in more scars. One of his forearms was made of metal, replaced after some ancient battle. His eyes burned brighter than any other Korvax, and when he walked, everyone stopped to watch. "Champions," Vorik said. His voice filled the arena without any need for amplification. "Welcome to the Unity Games. Today, we begin with tradition. Each team will demonstrate their training methods. This is not a competition. It is a chance to learn from each other, to understand how different species prepare for combat." He looked around the arena, his gaze stopping briefly on Tay and Una. "We will proceed in order of arrival. The Korvax will demonstrate first." Grok stepped forward with two other Korvax warriors. They moved to the center of the arena, and the crowd grew quiet. What followed was impressive. The Korvax trained by fighting each other with full force. Their stone fists crashed together with sounds like thunder. They threw each other across the arena, leaving craters in the ground. One Korvax picked up another and slammed him down so hard that the ground cracked. Then the fallen warriors stood up, completely unhurt. "Their bodies heal almost instantly," Una said quietly. "And their skin is harder than most metals." "I know," Tay replied. He had studied all the species before coming here. He knew their strengths. He knew their weaknesses too. The Korvax demonstration ended with Grok lifting a massive weight that must have been several tons. He held it above his head with ease, showing his incredible strength. The crowd cheered. This was power they understood. Next came the Solari. Their training was different. Instead of brute force, they focused on mental exercises. Viola sat in the center of the arena with her team, all of them in deep meditation. Then, without moving their bodies, they began to fight. Objects flew through the air, controlled by their minds. Shields of pure psychic energy appeared and blocked attacks. The air itself seemed to bend around them. At one point, Vila created a tornado of debris that spun faster and faster until it turned into a weapon of destruction. "Psychic combat," Tay noted. "They never need to touch their enemies. That makes them dangerous," Una said, "but also predictable. They rely too much on their gifts." The demonstrations continued. The Viarns showed their incredible speed and coordination. They moved as one unit, 20 insects acting with a single mind. The Gore demonstrated their regeneration, actually cutting off their own limbs and growing them back within minutes. The Nethi proved that they could not be hurt by physical attacks at all, passing through solid objects like ghosts. Each species showed their greatest powers. Each one demonstrated why they were the strongest in their part of the galaxy. And through it all, the Terrans watched silently. Finally, Vorik turned to Tay and Una. "The Terrans will demonstrate last." The arena grew quiet again. Champions who had been talking stopped. Observers on the floating platforms leaned forward. Everyone wanted to see what the humans would do. Tay looked at Una. She nodded. They walked to the center of the arena. "This should be amusing," Grok said, loud enough for everyone to hear. More laughter came from the crowd. Tay ignored them. He began to remove his jacket. Underneath, he wore a simple training shirt. His arms were covered in scars. Old ones, white and faded. Newer ones still pink and healing. Una did the same. Her arms told the same story. Years of training. Years of pain. The laughter slowed. Some of the champions were looking at the scars with curiosity. What happened to them? A Viarn clicked. I do not know, another replied. Perhaps accidents? Tay faced Yuna. They stood 3 meters apart. Then, without warning, they began. Yuna attacked first. Her fist shot toward Tay's face with incredible speed. He blocked it barely and countered with a kick to her ribs. She twisted away and grabbed his arm, pulling him off balance. He went with the motion, using his momentum to throw her over his hip. She hit the ground hard, but rolled immediately, coming up with a kick that caught Tay in the chest. He stumbled back, pain flashing across his face. The crowd had gone silent. The 2 humans continued to fight. They held nothing back. Punches landed with sounds of flesh hitting flesh. Kicks connected. Bodies hit the ground. They bled. Yuna's lip split open. Blood ran down her chin. Tay took an elbow to the eye, and his face began to swell. And they kept going. What are they doing? Vila whispered. They are hurting each other. This is training? Igor asked, confused. Why would they damage their own warriors? The fight continued for several minutes. Both humans were breathing hard now. Sweat and blood mixed on their skin. But their eyes never lost focus. Their movements never became sloppy. Finally, they stopped. They stood facing each other, both bruised and bleeding. Then Tay extended his hand. Yuna took it. They shook once, firmly. No bowing. No ceremony. Just respect between warriors. The arena was completely silent. Vorik stepped forward. His old eyes studied the humans with new interest. You train by fighting each other with full contact. Yes, Tay said. He wiped blood from his face. Your bodies do not heal like ours. Those injuries will take days, perhaps weeks, to recover. Yes. Then why? Why damage yourselves? Tay looked around at the gathered champions. He saw confusion on many faces. Some showed disgust. Others showed something like fear. Because pain is our teacher, he said. We do not have hard skin like the Korvax. We do not have psychic shields like the Solari. We do not regenerate like the Gore. When we are hurt, we stay hurt. When we make mistakes, we pay for them. He pointed to a scar on his arm. This teaches me to block better. Every scar is a lesson. Every broken bone makes us more careful. We learn through suffering, because that is all we have. Yuna spoke next. Our bodies are weak. We know this. So we train them to endure. We push past the point where others would stop. We embrace the pain because pain means we are still alive. Still fighting. Still learning. The silence continued. Champions looked at each other, unsure how to respond. Grok stepped forward, his burning eyes fixed on the 2 humans. This is madness. You torture yourselves. For what? For survival, Tay answered. You are born strong. We are born weak. You never had to fight for every advantage. We have always had to. He looked at his hands. They were rough and calloused, covered in small scars. On our world, we have a saying. What does not kill us makes us stronger. Every time we survive, we become better. Every time we fall, we learn how to get up. We have been doing this for thousands of years. Vila floated closer, her blue eyes wide. I can sense your pain. Both of you. You are in agony right now. How are you still standing? Yuna smiled, though it made her split lip bleed more. Practice. Vorik raised one of his 4 hands. I have seen many things in my long life. I have seen warriors with powers that could destroy planets. I have seen technology that could bend reality itself. But I have never seen beings willingly hurt themselves to become stronger. He looked at Tay and Yuna with something that might have been respect. I invite the Terrans to continue their demonstration. Show us more of how you train. Tay nodded. He turned to Yuna. Get the equipment. She walked back to their ship and returned with 2 large bags. Inside were simple things: weights, ropes, a metal bar. Nothing advanced. 3 days had passed since the first demonstration. The Unity Games were still a week away, and all champions were expected to train on Nexus Prime. The Council had provided special training facilities for each species. The Korvax had mountains to destroy. The Solari had meditation chambers that floated in 0 gravity. The Nethi had energy fields that let them practice their phase abilities. The Terrans had asked for something simple: a flat piece of ground, some basic equipment. Nothing else. The Council had given them a small area near the edge of the complex. It was not impressive. Other champions walked past it every day, curious to see what the humans were doing. What they saw disturbed them. Tay woke before the sun rose. The sky on Nexus Prime had 2 suns, and dawn came in waves of purple and gold. It was beautiful, but Tay did not stop to admire it. He had work to do. He started with a run. Not a slow jog, but a full sprint. He ran as fast as his body could move, pushing his heart rate to its maximum. He ran until his lungs burned and his legs felt like they were made of stone. Then he slowed to a jog. Then back to a sprint. This went on for an hour. Yuna joined him halfway through. She matched his pace without complaint. Both of them ran in silence, saving their breath for the work. By the time they finished, they were soaked in sweat. Their muscles ached, but they did not rest. Not yet. Next came the strength training. Tay loaded weights onto a bar and began to lift. The weights were not impressive by galactic standards. A Korvax child could lift more. But Tay was not lifting to prove his strength. He was lifting to build it. He did set after set. His form was perfect. Each movement was controlled and precise. When the weight became easy, he added more. When his muscles began to fail, he kept going for 3 more repetitions. "Your arms are shaking," Yuna said. "I know. You should rest." 2 more sets. He finished those sets. His arms were trembling so badly he could barely hold the bar. But he finished. A group of Viren had gathered nearby. They watched with their many eyes, clicking to each other in their strange language. "The Terran is damaging himself," one of them said in the common tongue. "Perhaps he is ill," another suggested. "No," a third said. "I think he does this on purpose." "Look at the other one." They turned to watch Yuna. She was doing something they had never seen before. She hung from a bar by her hands, then lifted her entire body up until her chin was above the bar. Then she lowered herself. Then she did it again. And again. And again. By the 20th repetition, her face was red. By the 30th, her arms were shaking. By the 40th, she began to grunt with each pull, her body fighting against itself. She kept going until she could no longer hold on. She dropped to the ground, her hands raw and red. She rested for 60 seconds, shaking her arms loose. Then she jumped up and grabbed the bar again. The Viren clicked in confusion and walked away. They could not understand. By midday, several other champions had come to watch. Some stayed for a few minutes. Others stayed for hours. None of them spoke to the humans. They just watched with strange expressions on their faces. Grok arrived with the afternoon sun. He stood at the edge of the training area, arms crossed over his massive chest. His burning eyes followed every movement the humans made. Tay noticed him, but said nothing. He was in the middle of a training session he called intervals. He would sprint for 30 seconds, then rest for 10 seconds, then sprint again. He did this for 20 minutes. When he finished, he bent over and vomited. His body had been pushed too hard. It was rejecting the punishment. Grok's eyes widened. "You are sick." Tay wiped his mouth. "No, this is normal." "Normal? You just emptied your stomach. It happens when you push past your limits." The body protests. You have to teach it who is in control. He stood up straight, took a deep breath, and started running again. Grok watched for another hour. He saw Tay run until he collapsed. He saw Yuna do push-ups until her arms gave out. He saw them spar again, hitting each other with fists and feet, adding new bruises to the old ones. Finally, he spoke. Why do you do this to yourselves? In the games, you will face warriors who can kill you with a single blow. All this training will not change that. Tay stopped what he was doing. He was covered in sweat and blood. His body was a collection of pain, but his voice was steady. You are right. I cannot become as strong as you. I cannot become as fast as the Viaran or as psychic as the Solari. I will never be able to take a blow the way you can. Then why train at all? Tay looked at him directly. Because strength is not everything. Speed is not everything. Power is not everything. In combat, the winner is not always the strongest. The winner is the one who can endure. The one who can keep fighting when their body says stop. The one who has been broken so many times that breaking becomes familiar. He held up his hands. They were covered in calluses and scars. These hands have been broken 4 times. My ribs have been cracked twice. I have torn muscles, damaged joints, and pushed my heart to the point of failure. And every time, I have recovered. Every time, I have come back stronger. Grok stared at him. That sounds like torture. It is. But torture shared with yourself is still just training. The big Korvax was silent for a long moment. Then he shook his head. You Terrans are strange creatures. I do not understand you. You do not need to understand us. You just need to know that we will not quit. Ever. Grok turned and walked away. But unlike before, there was no laughter. No dismissal. Just silence. The days continued. Tay and Yuna trained every day from dawn to dark. They rested only enough to let their bodies recover, just enough to train again. They ate simple foods. They slept on hard floors. They denied themselves every comfort. Word spread among the champions. The Terrans were doing something strange. Something disturbing. Every day, visitors came to watch. Every day, they left confused. Vila, the Solari, came on the 4th day. She watched for several hours without speaking. Finally, she approached Yuna during a brief rest. I have been reading about your species, she said. I found records of something called endurance hunting. Is it true that ancient Terrans hunted prey by chasing them until they died of exhaustion? Yuna nodded. Yes. We cannot outrun most animals in a sprint, but we can outlast them. We can keep moving long after they have collapsed. It is how our ancestors survived. Vila's silver face showed something like amazement. You won by simply not stopping? Yes, humans are not the strongest. We are not the fastest. We are not the deadliest, but we are the most stubborn. Give us time, and we will wear down any opponent. That is terrifying. Yuna smiled. There was blood on her teeth from a recent sparring session. Thank you. On the 5th day, something changed. Tay and Yuna woke to find a group of champions gathered outside their training area. Not just watching, but waiting. Vorik was among them. Grand Champion, Tay said, bowing slightly. How can we help you? Vorik stepped forward. His ancient eyes studied the humans with deep interest. You have caused quite a stir among my champions. Many of them cannot sleep. They keep thinking about what they have seen. I apologize if we have disturbed them. Do not apologize. Disturbance is sometimes necessary. Vorik gestured to the gathered champions. Some of my warriors wish to understand your methods better. They want to train with you. Tay looked at the group. There were several species represented. Solari, Gore, even a few Varan. They all looked nervous but determined. They want to train like Terrans? Yuna asked. They want to try, Vorik said. I think most of them will not last long, but the attempt will teach them something valuable. Tay considered this. Then he nodded. We would be honored to share our methods. But we must warn you. Our training is not kind. It is not designed to make you feel good. It is designed to break you down so you can be built back up stronger. We understand, said a Solari champion. His name was Keth, and he was one of Viola's teammates. I have spent my life developing my mental powers. I have never tested my physical limits. I want to know what they are. Then let us begin, Tay said. Everyone, start running. The champions looked at each other. Running? That is all? That is how we start. Run until you cannot run anymore. Then keep running. They began to run. At first, it was easy. The champions were all physically fit by their species standards. They moved around the training area with confidence. After 30 minutes, some of them were breathing hard. After an hour, the first champion stopped. It was a Viarn, and it collapsed in a heap of limbs. I cannot continue, it clicked. My body will not obey. Thank you for trying, Yuna said. Rest now. Drink water. The running continued. More champions dropped out. The gore lasted longer than most because of their incredible stamina. But even they had limits. By the end of 2 hours, only Keth the Solari remained with Tay and Yuna. His silver skin had lost its shine. His breathing was ragged, but he kept moving. Why are you still going? Tay asked, running beside him. Because you have not stopped, Keth gasped. I will not stop before you do. Tay smiled. Good answer. But the lesson is not about beating us. It is about beating yourself. Your body is telling you to stop. Your mind must tell it no. They ran for another 30 minutes. Finally, Keth collapsed. He lay on the ground, unable to move. Hi. Vorik looked back at him. The old warrior's eyes held a strange light. That true strength is not about power. It is about refusal. The refusal to quit. The refusal to accept defeat. The morning of the Unity Games arrived. The sky over Nexus Prime was clear, both suns shining bright and golden. The great arena was full. Millions of beings had gathered to watch the galaxy's finest. Warriors compete. Tay stood in the preparation room with Yuna. His shoulder was still swollen and bruised. The doctors had offered him medicine to dull the pain. He had refused. Pain kept him sharp. Pain reminded him he was alive. How does it feel? Yuna asked. Tay rotated his arm slowly. It hurt. Every movement sent fire through his nerves. Manageable. That is not what I asked. It feels like my shoulder was ripped out and shoved back in. He smiled slightly. Because that is exactly what happened. Yuna shook her head. You are crazy. Maybe. But I'm ready. The first rounds of the games were designed to test individual champions. Each warrior would face opponents from other species in one-on-one combat. The winners would advance. The losers would be eliminated. Tay's first opponent was a Viarn. The insect warrior was fast, with multiple limbs that could strike from many angles at once. In pure speed, the Viarn was superior to any human, but speed was not everything. The fight began. The Viarn attacked immediately, a blur of motion and sharp limbs. Tay did not try to match its speed. Instead, he moved efficiently, conserving energy. He blocked what he could and accepted hits that would not do serious damage. The Viarn grew frustrated. Its attacks were landing, but the human would not fall. Tay kept moving, kept fighting, kept refusing to go down. After 5 minutes, the Viarn began to slow. Its movements became sloppy. It was not used to extended combat. Its species relied on quick kills. Tay saw his opening. He caught one of the wren's limbs and twisted. The insect screamed and fell. Tay followed up with a strike to a nerve cluster he had studied during his research. The Viren collapsed, unable to move. The crowd was silent for a moment. Then whispers began. The Terran had won. Not through strength, not through speed, through endurance and knowledge. Yuna's first opponent was a young Gore. He was smaller than the others of his kind, but still massive compared to her. His fur was dark, and his claws gleamed in the arena lights. He expected an easy victory. Humans were soft. They broke easily. He charged at Yuna with all his speed and power. She waited until the last moment, then stepped aside. His momentum carried him past her. As he passed, she struck his knee with a precise kick. The joint bent the wrong way. The Gore howled and stumbled. Before he could recover, Yuna was on him. She wrapped her arm around his throat and squeezed. The Gore thrashed. He was far stronger than her. He could break her bones with one good hit, but he could not reach her. She had positioned herself perfectly, out of range of his claws and limbs. His thrashing grew weaker. The blood to his brain was being cut off. His regeneration could not help him if he lost consciousness. He tapped out. The fight was over. Yuna released him and stepped back. The Gore lay on the ground, gasping for air. He looked up at her with new understanding in his eyes. "You knew exactly where to attack," he said. "You had studied my species." "Yes," Yuna replied. "Every species has weaknesses, even the strongest. We are supposed to be nearly indestructible. Nothing is indestructible. Everything has a limit. Everything can be broken." She offered him her hand. "You fought well." He took it, and she helped him to his feet. "You are dangerous," he said. "Not because of your body, because of your mind." The games continued. Round after round, the humans kept winning. Not easily, not cleanly. They took damage. They bled. They limped. But they won. In the third round, Tay faced a Solari. The psychic warrior tried to attack his mind, sending waves of pain and fear into his thoughts. Tay had prepared for this. He had spent years learning to control his own mind, to focus through distraction and pain. The Solari's mental attacks washed over him like water. He felt them, but he did not let them control him. He kept moving forward, step by step, until he was close enough to strike. The Solari had never faced an opponent who could resist her powers. She panicked. Her physical combat skills were weak. Tay exploited this ruthlessly. She fell in minutes. In the fourth round, Yuna faced Keth, the Solari who had trained with them days before. He had learned from that experience. He did not rely solely on his mental powers. He fought with both mind and body. The fight was brutal. Yuna took hits that left her dizzy. Keth tried every trick he knew. But in the end, Yuna's experience and determination were too much. She won by decision after a full 20-minute battle. Keth bowed to her afterward. "You taught me more in 5 days than I learned in 50 years, he said. "Win the games, Terran. Win them for all of us who are not strong enough." By the fifth round, only 4 champions remained. Tay, Yuna, Grok, and Vorik himself. The Grand Champion had entered the games to test the young warriors. He had advanced easily, his centuries of experience making every fight look simple. But now he faced a choice. The semifinals matched Tay against Vorik, and Yuna against Grok. The arena fell silent as Tay stepped onto the fighting floor. Across from him stood the most decorated warrior in galactic history. Vorik's metal arm gleamed. His scarred face showed no expression. "You have done well, Terran," Vorik said. "Better than anyone expected. Better than anyone thought possible. Better than anyone thought possible. Thank you, Grand Champion. But this is where it ends. I have fought for 300 years. I have defeated armies. I have killed champions who could destroy worlds. He lowered into a fighting stance. You cannot beat me. Maybe not, Tay said. But I will try. The fight began. VORIK was everything the legend said. He was fast despite his size. His forearms made blocking impossible. His experience let him predict Tay's movements before they happened. Tay took hit after hit. His injured shoulder screamed with each impact. Blood flew from cuts that opened across his body. Any other warrior would have fallen in the first minute. Tay kept fighting. He lasted 5 minutes. Then 10. The crowd began to murmur. This was not supposed to be possible. The Terrans should have been destroyed by now, but Tay would not fall. He landed a few hits of his own. Nothing that hurt Vorik significantly, but enough to show he was still in the fight. His movements became more desperate, more creative. He used every trick he knew. At 15 minutes, Vorik stepped back. His breathing was slightly heavier than before. A single drop of blood ran from a cut on his cheek where Tay had managed to land a strike. Impossible, Vorik whispered. How are you still standing? Tay could barely see. His left eye was swollen shut. His ribs were cracked. His shoulder had almost certainly been damaged further. But he raised his fists and kept his stance. I told you, he said, his voice rough with pain. We never stop. We never quit. We will always find a way. Vorik stared at him for a long moment. Then something happened that no one expected. The Grand Champion smiled. In 300 years, no opponent has ever made me bleed, he said. No opponent has ever lasted this long against me. You have done both. He straightened from his fighting stance. I yield. The arena exploded with noise. Champions on the sidelines shouted in confusion. Spectators screamed questions. This had never happened before. The Grand Champion had never yielded to anyone. Vorik raised his hand for silence. When the noise died down, he spoke, his voice carrying across the entire arena. I could defeat this Terran, eventually, but it would take everything I have. And even then, I am not certain he would fall. He looked at Tay with deep respect. He has already proven everything he came here to prove. Humanity has earned its place among the galaxy's warriors. Not through power, through something far more important. He turned to address the entire crowd. We have all watched the Terrans train. We have seen them hurt themselves and keep going. We have seen them break and rebuild. We thought they were weak. We thought they were soft. We were wrong. He pointed at Tay. This being, this fragile creature who lives for less than a century, has shown us what true strength means. It is not about how hard you can hit. It is about how much you can take and keep moving forward. It is about the refusal to accept defeat, no matter how certain defeat seems. The crowd was absolutely silent. Every being in the arena hung on his words. The Terrans call themselves survivors. I finally understand what that means. They survive, not because they are built to survive, but because they choose to survive. Every moment of their short lives, they choose to keep going. That choice, made again and again, is the most powerful force I have ever witnessed. He turned back to Tay. You have won, Terran. Not just this fight. You have won the respect of every warrior here. The galaxy will remember this day. Tay stood there, barely able to stay upright. His vision was fading. His body was failing. But he managed to bow. Thank you, Grand Champion. You honor us. Vorik returned the bow. No, you honor us all. In the other semifinal, Yuna faced Grok. The massive Korvax was at his peak, fully rested and uninjured. Yuna was battered from her previous fights. The odds were impossible. The fight lasted 30 minutes. Yuna used every technique she knew. She targeted joints, pressure points, and nerve clusters. She avoided Grok's devastating blows and struck wherever she could find an opening. She fought not like a warrior, but like a force of nature that simply refused to stop. Grok hit he. The day before the games was supposed to be for rest. The council had declared it a day of preparation. Champions were expected to meditate, review strategies, and save their strength for the battles ahead. Tay and Yuna did not rest. They were in their training area at dawn, as always. The bruises from the previous days had turned purple and yellow. Tay's eye was still swollen from a sparring session 2 days ago. Yuna had wrapped her hands in fresh bandages, because the old ones were soaked with blood. They trained anyway. Word had spread throughout the champion quarters. The Terrans never stopped. Even on the day before competition, they were working. Many champions came to watch, drawn by a curiosity they could not explain. By mid-morning, a large crowd had gathered. Champions from every species stood at the edges of the training area. Some sat on supply crates. Others floated in the air or clung to walls with multiple limbs. All of them watched in silence. Vorik was there. So was Grok. Vila stood with her Solari teammates, her blue eyes never leaving the humans. Even coordinator Voss had come, his yellow snake eyes observing everything. Tay and Yuna began their sparring session. They had done this 100 times before. They knew each other's movements like they knew their own breathing. But today felt different. The air was heavy with anticipation. Everyone could feel it. They circled each other. Then Yuna attacked. Her first punch was fast, aimed at Tay's face. He blocked it and countered with an elbow strike. She ducked and swept his legs. He jumped over her sweep and landed a kick to her shoulder. The crowd watched in fascination. These were not the powerful attacks they were used to. No psychic blasts. No stone fists. No energy weapons. Just two beings using their bodies as weapons. But there was something beautiful about it. Something pure. The fight continued. They moved faster now, exchanging blows with increasing intensity. Blood began to flow from small cuts. Sweat dripped onto the ground. Their breathing became heavy and ragged. Then it happened. Yuna threw a high kick aimed at Tay's head. He moved to block it, but his foot slipped on a patch of sweat. He stumbled. Yuna's kick connected not with his guard, but with his shoulder. The sound was terrible. A wet pop that echoed across the training area. Tay's shoulder had dislocated. His arm hung at a wrong angle, twisted in a way that made several champions look away. He fell to one knee, his face white with shock. The crowd gasped. Some champions moved forward, ready to help. Surely the training was over now. The Terran was injured. He would need medical attention. He would need to withdraw from the games. Yuna stopped. She stood over Tay, breathing hard. How bad? Tay looked at his shoulder. His jaw was tight. Pain was visible in every line of his face. Dislocated. The joint is out. Can you fix it? Yes. And then, while the entire crowd watched in horror, Tay reached up with his good hand, grabbed his injured arm, and yanked another pop. Louder than the first. Tay screamed. Just once, a short burst of agony that he immediately cut off. His shoulder was back in place. The arm hung correctly now. But the pain was still there, written across his face in sweat and tears. No one in the crowd moved. No one spoke. They were frozen, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Tay stood up. He rotated his shoulder slowly, testing it. He winced with each movement. But he did not stop. Again, he said to Yuna. She stared at him. Tay, your shoulder is back in place. Again. They resumed sparring. The crowd remained silent. Champions who had fought wars, who had killed enemies by the thousands, who had seen horrors across the galaxy, Watched two humans hit each other with their mouths hanging open. Tay fought with one arm. His injured shoulder could barely move, so he kept it close to his body and used his other arm for blocks and strikes. He was slower now, more vulnerable. But he did not stop. Yuna held back at first. She did not want to hurt him more. But Tay shook his head. "Full strength," he said. "I need to learn to fight through this." She attacked at full strength. Tay took hits he would normally have blocked. His body absorbed punishment that made the watchers wince. But he stayed on his feet. He kept fighting. He even landed a few good blows of his own. 15 minutes later, they stopped. Tay was barely standing. His injured shoulder had swollen to twice its normal size. Blood ran from a dozen small wounds. His breathing was shallow and painful, but he was still standing. The silence in the crowd was absolute. No one knew what to say. No one had words for what they had just seen. Vor Ik stepped forward. His ancient face showed an emotion that few had ever seen there. "Awe. You reset your own joint," he said. "Without medicine. Without technology. You simply forced it back into place." "Yes," Tay said. His voice was strained but steady. "The pain must have been incredible." "It was. And then you continued to fight." "Yes." Vorik looked at Yuna. "You could have killed him in that state." One good hit to his injured shoulder would have ended the fight. "I know," she said. "But he asked me to fight at full strength. So I did." "Why? What does this prove?" Tay looked at the Grand Champion. Despite his injuries, despite his pain, his eyes were clear and focused. "Tomorrow in the games, something might happen. I might be injured. I might be hurt in ways I cannot predict. If I have never fought through that kind of pain, I will not know how to do it when it matters." He touched his swollen shoulder. "Now I know I can fight with a dislocated joint. Now I know the pain will not stop me." The crowd began to murmur. Champions spoke to each other in low voices. Many of them were looking at their own bodies, touching their own arms and shoulders. Agor stepped forward. He was massive, covered in thick brown fur, with claws that could tear through metal. His name was Bruck, and he was known as one of the strongest warriors of his kind. "I have healed from wounds that would kill most beings," he said. "My body can regenerate entire limbs. I have never felt pain for more than a few seconds." He paused. "I do not know how you do what you do." "Practice," Yuna said. "And necessity. We have no choice but to endure. But surely you have healers. Surely you have technology to fix your bodies." "We do. But medicine takes time. In battle, there is no time. We learn to keep fighting because stopping means death." A Nethi floated closer. Its form flickered like a candle flame. "I am made of energy. I cannot be physically hurt. But watching you, I feel something strange. I think it might be fear." "Why?" Tay asked. "Because you have shown me that power is not enough. Speed is not enough. Even being unable to be heard is not enough. You will keep coming. No matter what we do to you, you will keep coming. That is terrifying." Vila approached next. Her silver face was serious. "I can read thoughts. I touched your mind during that fight, Terran. I felt your pain. It was overwhelming, like standing in fire. But underneath the pain, there was something else." "What?" "Determination. Pure, unbreakable determination. Your body was screaming at you to stop. Every nerve was begging for mercy. But your will was stronger. You simply refused to quit." She shook her head. "I have never felt anything like it." Grok pushed through the crowd. The massive Korvax stood before Tay, looking down at him with those burning orange eyes. "I laughed at you when you arrived," he said. "I called you children. I thought you were jokes. I remember. I was wrong. Grok's voice was heavy with something that might have been shame. You are not children. You are not jokes. You are something I have never encountered before. He paused. You are survivors. Yes, Tay said simply. That is what we are. Grok extended one of his massive stone hands. Tomorrow, we may face each other in the arena. If that happens, I will fight you with all my strength. I will hold nothing back. Tay reached up with his good hand and gripped the Korvax's fingers. I would expect nothing less. But I want you to know this. If I defeat you, it will not be because you were weak. You are the least weak beings I have ever met. They released hands. Grok turned and walked away without another word. The crowd began to disperse. Champions returned to their quarters, their minds full of what they had witnessed. But something had changed. The way they walked was different. The way they held themselves was different. Fear had entered their hearts. Not fear of human strength. Not fear of human speed. Fear of human will. Vorik stayed behind. He watched as Yuna helped Tay wrap his shoulder with ice packs and bandages. The old Korvax's face was thoughtful. You know you have disadvantaged yourself, he said. Your shoulder will not fully heal by tomorrow. You will enter the games injured. I know, Tay said. It was foolish. Maybe. But now I know I can fight through it. Vorik shook his head. I do not understand your species. You do things that seem stupid. You hurt yourselves. You push past limits that should not be passed. And yet somehow you survive. Somehow you thrive. That is what we do, Yuna said. We find a way. We always find a way. The Grand Champion was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke again, his voice soft. I have lived for 300 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species ascend to greatness and fade into nothing. And in all that time, I have never seen anything like you two. He turned to leave, then stopped. Tomorrow the games begin. I do not know what will happen, but I know one thing for certain. The galaxy will never forget the Terrans. You have taught us something today. Something we did not know we needed to learn. What is that? Tay asked,